Hey, thanks for checking out my video. This is your first time here, and if not, that means you're a subscriber. You've come back for more, and you know it's spooky season because I've been doing spooky reviews. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is my spooky review of Mr. Harrigan's phone. Yep. This has audio description on Netflix. So I'm a blind film critic. That's why that's important for me, because I watched this film with audio description. Yeah, it's a film where people use their phones a lot. So audio description is kind of sort of necessary because we don't know what's on the cell phone screen. But anyway, there's a lot about this film I really want to talk about. There's just a lot. There's just a lot. I'm sorry, I got to talk really fast. Otherwise, this video is going to be like 30 minutes long. Okay, so first off, I didn't totally hate the film. It's going to sound like I did, because I'm going to start off with some heavy complaints. Heavy complaints. Okay, first of all, I know I called this spooky season scary season, and you might think that by clicking on a Stephen King adaptation that you have stumbled your way into something that is terrifying. No, you would be wrong. This is not that scary, if at all. I mean, thematically, like, I guess. But, like, in terms of what it could have done or places it could have taken or gone, yes. This is more like a Goosebumps book or an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Basically, Stephen King wrote a Goosebumps book and then they made a movie out of it. For many ways, this is really not. This is almost family friendly. If they had made a couple different choices, this would be a like all ages fare. It's even like a coming of age story wrapped, because he likes those. You know, I mean, let's face it, it is a coming of age story. You know, Stand By Me. We've had other coming of age stories. So this has all of the lack of scares. Sort of like, it reminds you that he also wrote Shawshank Redemption, which is not a horror film. I mean, it has some horrifying elements to it, but it's not a horror film. It's just kind of a drama. So yeah, this is just one of those reminders that Stephen King likes to do different things. And one of the things he apparently really wanted to do was be very cranky about cell phones. Very cranky about cell phones. I don't know how close to the original storyline this movie is to the book, how faithful of an adaptation. I think it's a short story, by the way. I shouldn't say book. I think it's just one of his short stories. But either Stephen King or John Lee Hancock, the writer-director of this film, do not know what a cell phone is, don't use them, hate them, and have decided to craft a film that makes them look stupid and makes cell phones ridiculous. It's not that I didn't get the point. There's a point in the film where Donald Sutherland is talking about phones and his like predictions of the future and like what this phone could do. He talks about he's like, I don't like it because I can get news for free. This is stuff that people pay for, and what's going to happen is things are going to, and he predicts like sort of, he's like, well, what happens with fake news and how do you control that? And he predicts sort of like the downhill decline of all of it. And it's easy to do that in 2022 when you just backtrace it by writing, but and it kind of makes him look cool back in like the late 2000s that he would have this like, prophet breakthrough moment where he's like, I see the future. because when he was saying it, he's like, I don't see any ads. And I was like, oh, just wait for those ads. They will come up, and paywalls and all of the other things. And, yeah. So, it kind of all happened. It's just, it was a 2022 thing written that was put in a time period in which I don't think he would have been like, oh, so yeah, I could see this coming and politicians are going to use this against us. And it's like, thanks for taking something that's clearly not something anybody would have said during this time period, but it's currently how we feel, and transplanting this back into a time period. Also, the most ridiculous thing, and this is one of the reasons I can't give this film a high grade. Oh my God, they treat cell phones the weirdest fucking way possible. It's so weird. It is so weird in this film. They have the like, this is at the breaking out moment, I guess, of smartphones. So the kids in the high school where our main kid goes, played by Jaden Martell, by the way, who does a fine job. I'm not going to say great. There's not a lot to this role. He does fine in this role. His role is also split with a younger version of himself. There's a kid that plays like a younger version. But anyway, so he's the teenage version that's going to high school. And he's going to high school at a time when smartphones are coming out. Whatever old ass person wrote this thought that what schools were doing in the late 2000s, where everybody's friendships were being broken up and divided into cliques by who owned what cell phone. I shit you not. Literally, this has a Mean Girls moment where I'm not kidding. Do not look at me like this. This movie has a Mean Girls moment in it, okay? Where they're like, where do you belong? Where do you belong? Where do you belong? I was just like, oh, I hate this movie so much right now. The kids, I guess they live in a smaller town that's next to a bigger town, so they don't have a high school. So they get bused to this high school, and there's this kid that was there last year who's like charging money to show them around the school and tell them like where to go, where not to hang, who to stay away from. And he does the whole like Damien from Mean Girls thing. And then they go in the cafeteria, and instead of him doing like, okay, so those are the jocks, that's the show choir, those are the band geeks, those are the... No, it's not that. It's those are the Razor phones, those are the Apple phones. Like, they're literally separated by who owns what phone. What the fuck? No one did that. No one was just like, oh, you can't sit with us anymore. Sorry, this is the Razor table. Get your iPhone out of here. Like, nobody was doing that. That is the most ridiculous thing. I was like, who wrote this? What old man who has never touched a cell phone before in his life wrote this film? I love that I'm filming this on an iPhone, by the way. I was like, this is going to be the most meta review because this film is about iPhones and I'm going to be filming this on an iPhone. So, full circle moment. Yeah, they have no idea how cell phones work. Whoever wrote this, it's very frustrating for anybody of a certain age. It's like old people will like this. They'll be like, the kids and their cell phones. See, this is what they get when they start using those darn contraptions. That's possessed by the demon. Oh my God. So this is a scary movie for old people, who are like, oh, get that cell phone away from me. Get it away. Demon, devil phone. Yeah, dude, nobody was separating cliques based on who owned what cell phone. There was still cliques, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like the poor nerdy kid at school got to go sit with the jocks just simply because he owned an iPhone. But that's kind of how this film treats those cliques. It's just like, because he gets a phone, right, at some point, and he literally just goes and sits down at the table, and they just welcome him. They're like, welcome, we see you have an iPhone now. Thank you for joining our table. You know, it's just, oh my God. Yeah, so anyway, there's that whole, so has a bully, which I did see another critic who thought the bully was a bit much, and I remember seeing Let Me In fairly recently, and I was talking about the bullies in that film being a bit much. They are, because like literally that bully is talking about cutting somebody's eyes out. This bully is actually a lot more run-of-the-mill, to be totally honest. This guy tracked a lot better. I totally disagree with the fact that the bully in this film was a bit much. He just was like a normal bully. He's just a kind of a douche that wanders the hallway. I was like, was this like my bully in high school? Yeah, it's pretty close. This is pretty accurate. This is an accurate portrayal of a bully. Which is kind of unfortunate, because at the same time, he never goes like just totally just out there. The bullies in Let Me In and some other films, they go so far out there because they have to, because when terrible things happen to them and they get dismembered and stuff, they're still kids. So to make it palatable, you have to believe that it's okay for them to die, like you would have put them down. You know, that like, look at the flowers moment in The Walking Dead. I mean, she literally killed her sister 2 seconds ago and turned her into a zombie. And that was what the moment was that brought her to the point where she was like, I can't, you know, I mean, she's turning people into zombies who are perfectly fine. It can't be happening. I can't trust her around anybody. So that was why that death happened. And the same thing with other bullies in other films is they're over the top for a reason. It's obnoxious and unrealistic, but it usually means those people die horrible deaths. This guy is just kind of like, he has like one scene where he beats up our main character, and that's about it. But it's kind of like a normal fight. It's just kind of like a normal beating. He doesn't like whip out a knife and start slashing. Like, he just kind of beats him up and runs away before he gets caught. So, yeah, it tracked a lot better on the normality. This film is basically also, it's very interesting for me to be commenting as a blind film critic, because Mr. Harrigan is visually impaired / blind. He's losing his vision, so he can't read. It's very unclear how much he can read, because he's paying the kid at the beginning of the film to come and read books to him. But the kid asks him, he's like, what do you read? What do you do when I'm not here? And he points to the newspaper, so he can like read a newspaper. I'm assuming he's using a magnifying glass to read the newspaper, or he's got larger font in the newspaper or something. I don't know. But he's visually impaired at a certain point. He obviously needs help, though, because he wouldn't be paying somebody to read to him if he could read the books himself. I thought this would be an interesting moment for them to actually go through the accessibility features on an iPhone. You know, actually use this as a way of being like, oh, look, you can, there's a magnifier tool here. Oh, they have a screen narrator or something. I don't know what was on the first gen iPhone, but I'm assuming there was at least an accessibility feature of some kind. That would help, even if it was just increasing the text size. They could have done something that would have shown the audience that we don't use cell phones the way you use cell phones. But unfortunately, when Jaden Martell gives Donald Sutherland the phone, it just basically just gives him the phone the same way he uses it and teaches him the same way. And then the film just accepts the fact that he can use the phone the same way as anybody else with no problem. And I'm like, you've already established his character. He's got like cloudy eyes, and you know, he's on it's on like an oxygen tank. He's not doing well, right? So how would he he needs something, you know, like he needs some sort of magnifying or text size increase or whatever was on the first iPhone. I don't know if narrator was around that early, but something was. I'm sure there was some feature on the iPhone. But that was a missed opportunity. So I was a little sad about that. As far as Donald Sutherland's performance as a blind man, I don't know what else to tell you. He's now at that point in his life, in his career, where for the most part he doesn't move. They just kind of let him do his performance from a chair. Kind of like Maggie Smith in the Downton Abbey movies. I guess we're close to losing Donald Sutherland, so they make his role here very easy and manageable. So he just kind of shows up, says some dialogue, does it really well, dies, and then the movie moves on. That's not really a spoiler that he dies, because the film is, the plot line, the tagline of this film is, after Mr. Harrigan dies, the kid leaves the cell phone in the grave, and he ends up getting messages back from the phone. The interesting thing is that I loved the song choice. I thought it was so weird for the dynamic between these characters, for this old man and this young boy that comes to read to him. The ringtone that they chose for this relation, because he's like, how will I know it's you? And he's like, oh, well, we can set up a personal ringtone. So he sets up his own, so he's like, what kind of music do you like? And he's like, oh, country. And so the song that they choose is Stand By Your Man. Right? So you're thinking about that. I know I gave you a minute to process that. So the song they chose is Stand By Your Man, and that is the ringtone. I feel like a lot of women just use that for their husbands. It's kind of weird that a teenager would use that for the old guy that he reads books from. I mean, there are other country songs. Why is this? I feel like this film was aggressively trying to make me hate it. Seriously, like there's so many things about this film where I'm just like, what in the holy hell choices are these are being made here? So yeah, so the ringtone for these lovers is Stand By Your Man. So every time you hear Stand By Your Man, it becomes sort of this like creepy thing, because it's like he's dead and it's like calling from the grave. And I don't know why. I guess probably because I'm going to guess that the name of the short story was The Pirate King and they had to work it in somehow. But he's like, oh, we got to figure out what your handle is. And it's like, nobody called it that. First of all, you're using it wrong. You're figuring out the name to put him in your phone. It just means the name. You know, first, when you go into contacts on an iPhone, it asks you first and last name, and that's how you put in the contact. It doesn't go create a handle. This is an Xbox. Like, you're not giving him an Xbox Live, gamer tag. So, again, this is written by an old dude who, he's like, oh, we got to give you our handle. And I was like, what handle? You mean his Apple ID? No, he meant the name that shows up on the screen when you call. God damn it. Anyway, so it's, so they choose the Pirate King. Probably because that's the name of the short story. I'm just going to guess. I didn't look it up, but it doesn't make any sense otherwise. It makes no sense. This film does not try to make sense in many cases. So from henceforth, he's listed as the Pirate King in the phone, and he puts it in his phone, so it shows up as the Pirate King. I think he does this weird thing where he puts it in Donald Sutherland's phone first, and then he puts it in his phone, and I'm like, that's not how that works. But anyway, meanwhile, I'm sure his his handle is his own name and Donald Sutherland's phone. By the way, I'm sure it doesn't say he didn't come up with a cool name for himself. There was no conversation about that, what his name was going to be, like cool as ice. I don't know. He didn't come up with a name for himself. He just wanted to make sure that Mr. Harrigan had one. I guess because putting Mr. Harrigan in your phone was too fucking easy. Anyway, so he also Mr. Harrigan gives out these lottery tickets, right? To like everyone. And they're like literally like these, straight up like play the devil cards or something. And it hits you over the head with that, just like this representation through these lottery tickets. It's just not a normal lottery ticket, it has to be this lottery ticket. It's a scratch off card that he gives as gifts for people. But then, like I said, Mr. Harrigan eventually dies, and Jaden Martell throws the phone in the coffin, and then he's getting really sad, and he's like, I miss you, Mr. Harrigan, I wish you were here. And then he gets a response from the grave. But of course, the response from the grave is unintelligible. It's just like letters. And then they spend the whole film trying to figure out what these letters mean. He's like, what is he trying to say to me? It's AAACCC. Or maybe it was CCCAA. The first one I think is CCCAA. And I was like, I don't know, dude. That's what that sounds like to me. But like each one is different. He gets texted a couple times, but they're all these unintelligible, like just letters. And he's like, what's Mr. Harrigan trying to say? I don't know. The funny thing is Mr. Harrigan calls him a couple times, but he never picks up. Not once does he ever answer the call to be like, hello? So that, that would have made the film so much scarier. But he declines every single call in this movie. He's like, no. We're only texting. It's such a modern thing. Nobody ever picks up the phone anymore. We only text. So he just only accepts the text messages. This film is so problematic on like 18,000 different levels. Yeah, and I don't know. There's this scene where he has this new teacher when he moves on sort of with his life away from Mr. Harrigan's death, and there's this new teacher, and they have this weird exchange where it like suggests sexual tension, but then they go nowhere with it. They have this moment where they kind of stare at each other. He's like, no, really, you've changed my life. And then they just kind of sit in that moment, and it says that they're staring at each other, like knowingly, but nothing happens. Like, they didn't go there with it. They didn't do anything. There's no hug. There's nothing. I'm like, they created this really like weird sexual tension scene, and they just left it. But basically, without spoiling the rest of the film, that's basically all I can give you in this film is that there are some other things throughout the course of the film that I could talk about, but in general, this film isn't really scary. It's just kind of like an old man hated phones, so he wrote a short story about how he hated phones, and we made it into a movie. I don't know why Ryan Murphy's producing this. I don't know why John Lee Hancock is directing this. I don't know why anybody was attracted to this film. I will say Donald Sutherland does a good job. It's exactly the kind of role that's good for him. He's played excellent bad guys before, and he gets to play a character that, even with his limited screen time, has range. It's a character that starts out very craggy and this mean old man, and slowly as this boy and him end up warming up to each other, they become friends, which is represented throughout some other things that happen throughout the film. Is they are friends. It's, he melted that guy's old cold heart. But he actually does get to play sort of a range of different things as the character advances. Unfortunately, the film is just, it requires you to be a little too stupid to enjoy it, a little bit much. And I just had too much of a problem with that. I will say that the original score for this film is nice. It won't get nearly enough praise, but it's very complimentary for the film. I did enjoy the score when I was able to pay attention to it. The audio description for this film is going to be somewhat thankless because there's a lot of narration from our title character, which takes up a lot of time, which kind of means that we get a little bit less audio description. Because the narration is sometimes in a lot of the gaps in which there could be narration. The narration is in places where there could be audio description, is what I meant. And but there are some scenes where we need it, where we need the audio description. There are a couple of, I can't even say intense sequences. There are a couple of scenes that would make this film qualify this film into a genre. The only few scenes that qualify this film as being worth releasing in October. This is mostly a coming of age movie. It feels very light, especially for a Stephen King film. It's not really gory. It's got a couple scenes that I would question, but considering some other PG-13 films I've seen recently that have come out of scary things, like scary stories to tell in the dark, is far more visually disturbing than anything in this film. So I don't know if it's PG-13 or R, but it should be PG-13. If it's rated R for anything, it's stupid. This film is almost PG, but PG-13 is what it should be. I'm rating it. Fuck the MPAA. I don't know what it's rated, but it's PG-13. There's nothing in this film warranting an R rating. Yeah, so spooky, scary, it is not. It's a coming of age tale wrapped up in a slight spookiness for the Halloween season. It's spookier than your average film, than just a run-of-the-mill film, but it's also profoundly stupid, which is really unfortunate because I liked a lot of it. I liked the coming of age side to it when they weren't being stupid and talking about cell phones. I liked some of the tension that was set up that didn't go anywhere. I liked some of the choices that were made with some of the characters. I thought Donald Sutherland was great. Jaden Martell's okay. So yeah, there's some stuff here that makes it not a terrible film, but oh my God, there's this like tidal wave of other stuff. It feels like it's this insurmountable thing to work against on the other side. Like you cannot get past. So, yeah, unfortunately I can't give this one a good endorsement. I don't know what the point was, but this one I would pass on this. I'm gonna give Mr. Harrigan's Phone a D+. It just doesn't really achieve anything at the end of the day. It could have. It has all of the tools. John Lee Hancock is a perfectly fine director. I don't know what he did with this script. I don't know what kind of crack Stephen King was on. I'm assuming he hates cell phones. So anyway, thanks for staying this long. If you've made it this far into the review, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 100 by the end of the year. I think it's totally doable. I want to be a triple-digit YouTuber. It's pretty basic. You can visit my website, macthemovieguy.com, for more reviews. You can Follow me on Twitter at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org and it lets you know who's narrating what. That's it for me today, and I will go review something else, but I'll see you guys on the other side.